If you're waking up fatigued, if you're waking up with brain fog, your adrenals are basically quite run down. Well, your HPA axis is dysregulated. You know, if you have digestive issues, if you are suffering pain, aches and pains, or inflammation overall, that is a result of your HPA axis not being working well.
Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you very much for having me on.
I'm excited because hormones is something that I'm passionate about sharing this topic because I am in perimenopause myself, and it has been a very unshared topic over the years. And it's now finally where women are getting some insight into what's happening within our bodies and our hormones. And I want to know the next steps so that menopause and postmenopause, I'm excited to speak with you today about.
I'm excited to share all of it with you. It's amazing how many of us are in the perimenopause phase now.
I know. I feel like everyone I speak to. Me
Yes,
too.
it's in the tribe. Well, I mean, half of the world population are in menopause. I think over half, actually. So, you know, and for something that was so taboo and we haven't spoke often about, everyone is experiencing it. And I mean, you know, I was having this conversation with someone the other day saying just how, like, my mum would try to speak to her sister about her perimenopause very quietly and subtly and name things. I mean, you know, even when I was living at home, we didn't call period. We called it Charlie. You know, we couldn't say the word period.
Yeah, I know. I love that we can finally have a space for these discussions. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the Awaken Mama podcast, a space where we explore powerful healing modalities, deep conversation, and holistic tools to support your journey to wellness, wholeness, and empowerment. If you're ready to heal, grow, and rise, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode.
Let's dive in. For our viewers who may not have heard of Sharon before, Sharon is a functional, if I can say the word, functional medicine practitioner, holistic health coach, women's herbalist, educator, and founder of Embrace Nutrition and Health. You are wearing all the hats. You blend science with soul to support women through perimenopause, fatigue, hormone imbalance, and trauma recovery, offering root cause healing, nervous system support, and a sacred space for women to heal themselves.
Yeah. It's nice hearing all of that together.
It's beautiful. Okay, so can you explain, let's start, how the gut impacts our mood, energy, and even hormone imbalance, especially, or balance, in that midlife stage?
Yeah, absolutely. So the gut plays a huge role, Crystal, in regards to the menopausal transition, even the perimenopause transition. The gut houses a lot of hormones, and obviously we have a colony of good bacteria and bad bacteria in there. We call that the microbiome. And the microbiome is basically a class of microbes that are beneficial bacteria that help with hormones, as I said, that help with absorption of nutrients, that helps with our mood, our libido, that helps with our stress and anxiety, our resilience, a number of things, thyroid health. So when the landscape starts to change in menopause, the gut can be a big part of that transition. And if it's in a poorer sort of state of health and the environment of the gut isn't optimal, then there's going to be issues with menopause specifically. And I think this is something that women don't quite understand or know about, not because it's their fault, because it's probably not out there like it should be. So we're getting a false understanding of what we should be doing to improve symptoms of perimenopause and menopause without really looking at the gut as the second brain of the body. So it's a big part of that.
So how does our microbiome shift during perimenopause and menopause, and
Yeah.
what effects does it have on things like bloating and weight gain, inflammation? That's huge topics for women that are speaking about what they're going through during perimenopause.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And even working with women, that's the main questions I get, about bloating and weight gain. As soon as they end up with the cessation of their periods, they find that they're putting on a couple of kilos and they don't want that. And what's going on? What's changing for them? Unfortunately, the gut does change as we move into the menopause transition. And I think it's a good idea to explain what menopause is. It is the dialing down of hormones, and in particular, estrogen or estradiol. But it's also a dial down of other hormones that we have too that, you know, keep us in our what was a reproductive state before. So women were probably at that stage, in the reproductive stage, in your 20s and 30s, early 40s, still able to maintain their weight through exercise and diet. By the time they reach this decline in estradiol and progesterone, they're struggling. The reason behind that, Crystal, is because the cascade of hormones that's taking place, and they wildly fluctuate through perimenopause specifically, they have an effect on the gut microbiome, but they also have an effect on the way that we metabolize and digest and eliminate certain estrogens that are responsible for weight gain. So as progesterone specifically dials down, bile flow is actually affected. So women aren't eliminating as well. They're not able to break down the estrogen and then compose that into bile matter, and then that is actually excreted through your feces in a bowel movement. We know that most women, once they reach menopause, are also more constipated. So they're quite bloated as a result of that because they're probably only going 1 to 3 times a week. And then with the added pressure of cravings and just fat deposition in general, which happens in the menopausal state, because the body realizes that, okay, we're losing these hormones. We need to save her in a different way. So fat deposition, unfortunately, starts to take place around the abdomen and around the areas that we don't want, thighs, hips, waist. And this thickening is really responsible for the metabolic inflexibility or the metabolic issues that we have. And we need to make sure, that we get back on track there. The problem with this, Crystal, is that women and transitioning into this phase have a 1 in 3 chance of insulin resistance, meaning that they have a risk of diabetes. So the microbiome being the bacteria or the good bacteria that we want in the gut, which helps with the regulation of hormones, thyroid for metabolism, a blood sugar regulation as well, and even our choices in food. So the choices we make about our food are primarily determined by your gut microbiome. And we know and understand that people in general, and I'll say men as well, have a higher weight or at risk of obesity due to their gut microbiome. It's a very strong element when we think about the role of the microbiome, because it's between the vagus nerve, which is the super highway to communicate, there is a it's sort of like a bidirectional communication between the gut and the brain. So as the brain is recalibrating in menopause, if the gut isn't at an optimal, it is going to be affected in terms of the way that we regulate our hormones overall. And it's largely does affect our mood. You've probably heard the term, Crystal, my microbiome made me do it.
That's hilarious. I haven't.
There's a T-shirt you can get. So I think it was in the US. There was a woman who was being charged for murdering her husband, and she
Oh,
was
wow.
in the menopausal transition, and she wore the T-shirt, my microbiome made me do it. And I always thought that was funny. And it's something I tell to people when I do my presentations on gut and inflammation.
So did the shirt get her out of jail? Like,
No,
did
I
she do
don't think
time?
so. She did try to claim that she had mental health issues during her menopausal transition, that she did have moments of brain fog, which we know is part and parcel of that. So her choices were poor due to the gut microbiome. But when we look at that, we realize, not just her example, but in general, The research on gut microbiome is forever evolving. And I think we only have the best research on it in the last decade. Really, we didn't know anything before 2015. Do you believe that? It's just crazy because it's like they didn't realize there was the correlation between that and menopause and women's weight issues.
I'd
So
like to
it's
say they
huge.
probably didn't care before then. It was
Well,
a man-dominated world. There wasn't,
absolutely. The
everything that
research,
we go by is that 24-hour cycle that a man has. Yeah.
absolutely. Your research was predominantly performed by men, and the data was collected in a male dominated population. So we knew that this research was coming through all the time, and it's predicting what women should be doing on the basis of a men, being cohort samples of men. And we are biologically different to men. And I don't care how people put it. It
Yeah, we
is
don't care
just
what your pronoun is or what your view on
exactly.
hormones are. We have a 28-day cycle, and men have such a simpler system, a 24-hour cycle. Wouldn't that just be easy?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we are two different species, and you cannot compare. You can't do research based on men's data and then put that towards women's health in terms of, over medicalizing them, over diagnosing them, or underdiagnosing them,
Gaslighting them.
misinforming them, and gaslighting them. And that's exactly what perimenopause and menopause women are going through right now in the medical model, in the conventional model as we know it.
Absolutely. It's huge, the amount of women that I see on social media saying that they just can't get the support that they need from their GP, and because the medical system isn't set up to support us through health. It's the big pharma system. It's pharmacology. So if you want a script, then absolutely that's what you're going to your GP about. But they don't they don't have that knowledge of the women's hormones and perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause and all of that. And so you really do need to go to someone who has studied in this field, who has supported people in this field like yourself, who know, what they're talking about. They're not going to gaslight you.
Absolutely. It's so confusing for women. GPs can be great. I mean, they're in an industry where they're, especially in the where I'm in a growth corridor where we live, and I mean there is only so many GPs per thousands of their patients, but they've only done maybe one lecture in hormones and possibly menopause. So being the first port of call for women who are going there with symptoms, they're being told to take anti-anxiety medication, antidepressants, Ozempic and other GLP-1s, Nexium and other proton pump inhibitors, which in fact we know that these medications are not helping the gut microbiome, creating a barren desert. When we look at the microbiome is meant to be a flourishing, wonderful growth of bacterial species, colonies, and there are different colonies. You would think of the gut bacteria as just being plain gut bacteria. They have their own little colonies going on. There are different ones. They get actually eradicated every time you have antibiotics, for example. We can't ever replace those. So the selection of them are quite diverse, and it is extraordinary when we look at that. And that's why the research now is so upcoming. I think, menopausal research is huge, but the role of the gut microbiome and all of that is even greater right now, Crystal.
I want to circle back to something that you mentioned, constipation.
Yeah.
I want to give a tip for women because last year when I finished my breastfeeding journey and I started detoxing and I started coffee enemas. Now I know how good that is for flushing out toxins and glutathione that it produces. It's 700 times more. It's Happy Bum Co. If you look them up, they have a bunch of different ones, not just coffee ones, but there's, I believe, ones for hormones. And you can do water enemas, and it's such a great way to just flush things out and I suppose get things moving again, because I'm in the little Facebook community and I know that that's something that women talked about, is having problems going to the bathroom and that with them. So I just wanted to mention that, because the more tools that we can have in our little tool belt, then the easier it is going to be able to support ourselves through this transition into menopause or postmenopause.
Absolutely. We're a constipated country, and women that do reach menopause do find that that is an issue. When they come to see me, they're going as little as 3 times a week. And often on the Bristol stool chart, it's like a number 2, which they're really, really struggling to actually go. And that is the issue. With the role of the microbiome, we've got to make sure we feed it properly. We can do all the things like supplements and protein, collagen powders, and all the things which are great and can help as a supplementary, complementary thing. But, for me, food as medicine is first, having the functional nutrition background as well. I know that fibre plays an important role. That is a very important part of the menopausal journey, because, what women tend to do is once they reach menopause, they still cut calories, or they may decide to go on the keto diet, or the paleo diet, and look at ways of cutting out quality carbohydrates. And we know we need these short chain fatty acids, because the butyrate that it makes is going to help you with your mood. It's going to help you with your weight. It's going to help you with the dense fiber that you need to form a better stool. And look, your heart even relies on it. If we're not having a good bowel movement, it's not a great flag really for cardiovascular disease risk and stroke. So we know that that's an important part of it. Bowel cancer in Australia is the leading cause of cancer right now. I work for Diabetes Victoria as well as a holistic health coach and nurse for them. And we have quite a few clients that have come through and they have to do a fibre tick box. And a lot of them are low in fibre. The aim is 30 grams a day, and people are getting probably about 6 grams. In America, I think it's under that. I just did a podcast, an overseas one, and yeah, we were discussing that. I think we did sum it down to, it was like 3 grams and less.
Yeah, it is such an undersourced nutrient. Like, it is something that we focus on in our health program, is protein and fiber. And so my little tip is how I help meet my fiber intake. And I just want to say that there is a confusion between quality fiber, and people be like, hey, eat some bread, because that's something that we were told, like,
Yeah.
when we were younger, you have bread for fiber, and like, no, don't. That's not the quality fiber that you need. That's more likely to probably do the opposite. Yeah, Eddie. But I have acacia fiber every day in my smoothie, and that is a really good source of fiber. And I also have a really quality flaxseed meal in my smoothie.
Love that.
So
Yes.
yes, brilliant ways of making sure that you're hitting your fiber targets every day is by having those simple ways that you can just add it every day. So then when you're looking at other sources of fiber and, adding it to your breakfast and your dinner, you know that you've already got that backup of how to, meet that extra little bit. So
true. Yeah. The problem sometimes too, perimenopause and menopause, is that women find digesting fiber very difficult. And then they will have gas and alternating bouts of diarrhea, constipation, bloating. And this is the initial effect that fiber will do often. And it kind of can put them off. But if their gut is in a poor state and there's gut dysbiosis, then they need to heal the gut beforehand to be able to then help to reseed the gut colony and the large intestine as well. So that's a very important thing to also consider. But your flaxseed is perfect. And any way you can add an additional amount of fiber a day just to meet your quota is just a really good move, because there's only so many hours in the day. And then women are just saying, how am I going to get 30 grams of fiber in? Or how am I going to get this in every single meal? It's impossible. I don't have time to just cook and plan food, because they're working, they're running businesses, they're running their husband's business or partner's businesses. They've got kids and other things on. We're juggling, aren't we?
yeah,
So it's really hard to do all the things, and they find that a real effort. So those extras are great.
Yeah, I have a smoothie every day for lunch. And if I'm going out for lunch, I just have my smoothie for breakfast. Like, it's such a simple way of making sure that I have my chia seeds in there. I have my collagen in there because, I'm not producing it like I used to, which has got that extra protein as well. And I have creatine, and that's such a good one for cognitive function too, which, as we know, is one of those things that's going to decline. So I can stick it all in a drink, and it's so good it's so yummy. And I have my cacao in there, which again, it's mood boosting, and it's the finest quality in the world. So I know that I'm having that quality supplements or quality nutrients in a yummy drink. And I am in my autumn phase of my cycle, which is the week before my bleed. So I'm like digging the chocolate right now. And I have 3 different protein powders that I use, all within the same company. But my Perform is my fruit fusion, and it's 25 grams of protein. But during my lead up to my bleed, or during my bleed, I'll have my complete protein, and that's chocolate, and that has 13 grams. And while it's less protein, I'm adding more of, I'm adding my collagen and my creatine. I know that I can still make that up easily with the food that I'm eating, and adding some hemp seeds in there, or whatever, if I know that I'm going to be under. It's delicious. And I also have a vanilla option. Mostly I will put that in things like oats and chia pudding and that sort of thing. Just having tools like that in your little tool belt to go, right, how can I make things easy? Because if it's not easy, it's not happening. We're falling off the wagon. We're beating ourselves up about it, and we're quitting. Like, if you can just have a simple system, set up, that you go, right, these are my things, chuck it in, right, and I'm good. Yeah. Just feel like it's easier to not create that burnout, which I'd like to speak into that. The adrenal glands. How do the adrenal glands and cortisol levels play into this sense of burnout? Let's go.
Look, this area is huge. I get it constantly. Women are exhausted. Women are burnt out. They're tired. They've had enough. The 3 p.m. slump, the rewiring, and I think the second wind at like 10 o'clock at night, and then, again at 3 a.m. Okay, so the adrenal glands are beautiful little glands that sit on top of the kidney, and they're responsible for producing cortisol, regulating your blood pressure, regulating blood sugars, and just helping us basically to wake up in the morning, getting that up and go, getting your motivation, helping you to fall asleep at night, helping your wound healing. If we fell over and you busted open your knee, which I hope you don't, we need cortisol to repair. So it's a wear and tear hormone. But what happens is, with our adrenals, when we are pumping out too much cortisol and we're overdriven, we're in exhaustion, and we have the saber-toothed lion or tiger chasing us constantly, and we're in a sense of panic. Our sympathetic nervous system, which is a part of the nervous system that's the fight or flight response, is activated. Cortisol levels are going to be basically spilt out into the bloodstream. The problem is the issues with that, obviously, is that is a wear and tear hormone, is it create havoc on hormones and other hormones. So when we're in adrenal insufficiency or deficiency, or adrenal overdrive, your cortisol is going up and down, and that's a real issue in perimenopause, because it's not going to be great for, obviously, your weight, and it's not going to be great for blood sugar balancing. What I, though, call it more so, rather than adrenal dysfunction or adrenal issues, which is the exhaustion part, is more the HPA axis disruption, Crystal, which is the hypothalamus, pituitary, and the adrenal axis. So it's really the communication between the three, the parts of the brain that are responsible for your thermostat of the brain, and the part of the brain that's responsible for hormones. So when this HPA axis, we call it, is disrupted, it is really the stress response that is disrupted. And we call this allostatic load. And this allostatic load is like we're holding on to a lacquer band, and we're pulling this lacquer band. And you could ding, ding, ding on the lacquer band as long as you want, but eventually you're going to lose that. The stress is going to cause the elasticity of the lacquer band to loosen. And that's what happens when we're under a HPA axis dysregulation. It's where our stress response isn't as great as it was, and our resilience to stress is actually impaired. So the problem with this in this part of the lifespan is that we try to keep moving on and be the good girl and say yes and not pause and do all the things that we shouldn't be doing, not listening to our body. I'm very much about taking time to listen to what is happening in your body. Really, if you're waking up fatigued, if you're waking up with brain fog, your adrenals are basically quite run down. Well, your HPA axis is dysregulated. If you have digestive issues, if you are suffering pain, aches and pains, or inflammation overall, that is a result of your HPA axis not being working well. If your immune system is impaired, you're picking up every sickness that is around you constantly, not just a one-off, then we know that that's HPA axis dysregulation. So that does play a part in our hormonal balance during this time, because you want to hold on to your hormones at this time. We're both in our perimenopausal state. So we both have the declining progesterone, the wildly fluctuating estrogen at this stage. We want to make sure that we keep some sort of balance, for our brain, for our bone density, for our heart later on. We want to make sure that your hormones are balanced as much as possible. Unfortunately, cortisol is the one hormone that steals your progesterone. So we know that that's not a good thing. The more stressed you are, the more hormonal disruption you're going to have. And I think this is the link that women may not be making when they really look at, just tell me how I can, balance my hormones, or tell me how I can fix this cortisol issue. Because sometimes it's more than doing A to B. You've got to do the other work. And sometimes that it might be, whether that's taking a morning out. I mean, I think it was the other morning I just had to take a morning out to do a couple of things, like, go for a walk or just recollect my thoughts, not have anyone call me, text me, email, just staying away from technology. That's the huge driver for cortisol, and that's a huge driver for adrenal disruption.
When we wake and we rise, our cortisol levels rise of a morning, and that's when we're
Absolutely.
creating our hormones for the day.
Yes.
And as women, we really benefit from slow mornings. So for you women listening, if you have a busy lifestyle and you are get up, get the kids ready, like get husband's lunch or whatever it is for you, and you are just go, go, go and get out the door, and then you're on your way to work, and then there's the road rage and you're just like constantly in that sense of fight or flight.
Yeah.
Stop. If it's getting up earlier so that you can pause and have that moment to yourself, and that's what, whatever it takes to get that slow morning. I am really blessed that I have created a freedom life where I get to be home with my twins, and slow mornings are my non-negotiables. Actually, unless I am speaking to a guest who is on the other side of the world. Like yesterday morning, I did a recording at 8:30, which is early for me to do a recording because I don't normally do that. I like ground of a morning and practice gratitude, and it's really those things. So a masculine energy is doing all of the things. Even mothering is a masculine energy, unless you're nurturing and cuddling and having that beautiful bonding time, and you're doing and you're cleaning the house. So get out of your masculine, get into your feminine, and just be. Whether it's grounding, meditation, gratitude, those things that are going to just put you in a sense of I can just be, then your hormones are going to be, I was trying not to swear there, out of balance. You're going to be whack.
Thank you. Because your hormones only respond to what you throw at them.
Yes.
They get told off all the time by when my bloody hormones, this and that. And it's like, it's your hormones do play a part, but it's what you throw at them.
Yes.
So
So
if you're
honor
gonna
that.
yourself, exactly. Don't trash yourself anymore,
Yes. Yeah. take a moment to be slow. And the same goes at the end of the day. And if you have got a supportive husband, and not everybody is lucky. So I'm speaking to women who have the luxury of having someone here to support them. My husband, he really is a king, and we support each other to have that time. Because men have a 24-hour cycle, their testosterone is high of a morning. So they're able to take that load for you, because if maybe it's the driving the kids to school and being in all in that traffic that you're just like, no, not for me. I'm going to take this time and go for a walk out in nature, or actually I'm going to light a candle and do a meditation, whatever it is for you. And he can be the king, step up and take that, because his testosterone is firing. He's like, I've got this. Whereas at the end of the day, when he comes home from work or whatever your lifestyle is, then give him that grace to come home. Don't be in his face being like, I've had the kids all day and now here, like I'm done. Like give him a chance to unwind too. And so that you can both support each other where, you really do need that. Because yes, while you're going to feel drained at the end of the day if you've been with the kids all day, if you're taking proper time for yourself and starting your mornings right, then you're going to be able to best support him too. And it really is about that support. And if you don't have a partner, then bring the kids along for the ride. I'll take the kids outside, depending on if they want to go outside. I'll do my gratitude out here. They can be around. They know that I'm practicing my gratitude. And I think that's a really good role modeling to do with the kids. And I'll even speak to them sometimes about what are you grateful for? I'm grateful for this. And, they're 3. So we're not having really in-depth conversations about it. But it's setting that tone for what we do in our family, and health is a really high value. And so, I just wanted to give that tip for the dynamics in the household and how best we can support each other with the different hormone cycles that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. I love how the kids get involved in that, Crystal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have a whiteboard for them. Yesterday I was creating it's a huge board. It's massive, one of those big whiteboards that flip around, and it's on a big stand. And so I was putting all my, I have a relationship mantras and all these different things in there that I say of a morning, or whichever part of the day I'm going to take that time to pause and say those things. And then on the back, I've got a vision board. So I flip it around and I'm writing, because the other one is laminated pictures, laminated in case the twins get to them. And then I'm writing on the back with the different colors on the whiteboard. And I got the kids' whiteboard, which is, this big instead. And they've got their chalk pens. And they're watching me create mine. But then last night they went to bed. Aaron was fishing. He was doing some night fishing. And I got a candle and I did a meditation. And then I sat down and I did my end of day journaling, and I did my mantras and different things, my vision statements. And just taking that time at the end of the day too is really nice, because it just helps reset. Okay, you can reflect, and it's really good for your nervous system to just be able to bring back into yourself, come back to yourself.
And really feel when your nervous system is in overdrive, can't you? When you're feeling that very edgy, you're trying to sort of settle and you can't. And, doing the grounding and things like that, lighting a candle or reading or taking a bath or just doing anything, spending time in nature with the kids, with your hubby or partner. It's so important, because that connection really plays a role in that too. And I think we don't realize that, being in such a fast-paced world with social media at our fingertips. My mornings are very different this year compared to last year. And I changed that because I was getting very stressed out by the time I got to the gym. Because of the traffic, I had a 40-minute drive to the gym and drop off at school and all the rest of it. By the time I got to the gym, there was fatigue. By 3 o'clock in the morning, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there was fatigue. And then last night, normally I would be working really late, I just finished early and I didn't go on my phone. I was really good and I tried really hard and I could hear it beeping. But I'm like, no, I'm taking the night off because I needed to get grounded again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important to have that time. And you can just feel like,
frazzled.
Yeah, that's right. And so making sure you're taking care of brain health too with that brain fog is really important part of that. And and whatever you can have at the end of the day for that energy hit instead of caffeine, because if you're having caffeine and you're struggling with hormones, it's probably not going to be great for you. I have a love-hate relationship, so no judgment. I freaking love coffee. Like, hand up, I love coffee. So before I started my health journey 7.5 years ago, I was your typical burnt out mum having 3 cups a day. Yeah, I would have one in the morning, and then I'd have one at lunch because I'm like, oh, going down. And then I'd have one at lunch, and then I'm having one at the end of the day. And accidentally quit when I started my nutrition support. I did accidentally quit. I was making my coffee every day, and the kids were like, stop it, mum. You're not even drinking it. I didn't need it, but it was my routine. Anyway.
Yeah.
And then I went back to having it because I'm like, oh, I actually really love coffee. Like, I love the way it smells. I love the way it tastes. I didn't need it for the energy, but I miss it. And then as years went on, perimenopause hits. And then I was like, I might have one in the afternoon, because actually I did the DNA and the Dutch hormone test, and I
Yeah.
learned that I metabolize coffee fast, and I could have coffee if I wanted of a nighttime and it wouldn't keep me awake.
Yeah.
So I did. I was like, I can have coffee. And so then I was like, I got to enjoy that nighttime, afternoon, whatever it was, sit down and just relax and have my coffee, because for me, that's what it's about. It's about the pause and the hot drink.
Yes.
I swapped it out for my cacao, because now I have my Luminate in the morning, which is so good for energy and focus.
The green coffee bean that you were.
Yeah.
I wanted to look more at that. Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah. It's got lion's mane in there,
I love
rhodiola,
So very
sage. It's
uplifting.
yeah.
Grateful.
And because it's the green coffee beans, you don't get the jittery crash. So you just have the energy. And so I was having that this morning. I didn't have it warm. I just had it as a pre-workout before Pilates. I chucked it in my shaker. And the other 2 mornings I was having it warm as a replacement for a warm drink, instead of my cacao, because I'm like, actually like my cacao and my chocolatey drink of an afternoon. And so then I'm having, like, this is my let's go of a morning. And then I'm having my cacao as more of a ceremonial, like, just being time of a nighttime or of an afternoon. So anyway.
Cacao and lion's mane together is beautiful. I did a breathwork session, probably going off track now, but I did a breathwork session in Melbourne, and they gave us that in between. Oh, it was beautiful. It was so nice. And then it was just so calming. And then we went back and did the breathwork, and yeah, lovely.
Yeah, that's so good. I would love to bring like a meditation and breathwork session to everybody. I can't sit there and make a cacao for people virtually. I'll have one.
No, but you can have one.
If you want to put your order in, actually, it's nearly sold out. I'm so lucky. Mine just shipped yesterday. It's sold out in New Zealand, and it's only available in Australia, Canada, and New Zealand at the moment. We are the only people in the world to have the finest quality of Ecuadorian that was nearly extinct cacao. And yeah, it nearly sold out. And point is, ladies, find your quality drink that you can have that is going to boost your mood, that is going to support your hormones, because firsthand experience, I know that caffeine. Okay, caffeine. Oh my God, I can't even speak. That word was just not doing good for me.
Yeah, coffee is a funny one, isn't it, though? Because you see it in the news, and it's been like, oh, increasing your coffee is good for this and that. It's an antioxidant. It's a great bitter. And I will say to people, or women in particular, if they are really hooked on it, because it's probably one of the things that you would look in an elimination phase of if you're wanting to improve your hormones, of course. But if they can't let go of it, it's really important. It is a bitter, so it actually stimulates bile. So it's great for the estrobolome that's trying to get rid of excess estrogen if you're estrogen dominant. So that's a good thing. And some people will say, helps them to go to the toilet. The other thing is it does wire you. I did the DNA test like yourself, and I don't remove it. I'm not an efficient metabolizer of caffeine, unfortunately, and I feel that. I think
And
it
you
was a
get the
couple of weeks
jitters.
ago. Yeah, well, I went to Collingwood. We had a coffee in one of the really great coffee shop. They do beautiful coffee beans. It was 3:00 in the afternoon. It was just a little one, and I was up all night. And I was like, why did I do that? I know what if it was in the morning and I had it with some food, maybe, and you buffer it a little bit, but no. And it's not great. You're not getting a great sleep. It's interfering with progesterone. So we've got to be mindful, but, get good quality coffee if you're going to have coffee.
Mold-free organic coffee, and try not to have it on an empty stomach too.
Yes, so important.
And another hot tip, before I was adding it to my cacao, my collagen, I was adding it to my coffee, and MCT oil. It's a good combination of protein and fat. And so adding that to your coffee is better than just having your coffee.
Oh, yeah, and MCT oil is so good for thyroid too. So, if you've got Hashimoto's and that as well, yeah, great combination.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to, we were talking about adrenal dysfunction or whatever you called it. I'd love
regulation.
Yes. I'd love to talk about some of the early signs that women can often overlook, and how that we can begin to restore that vital energy naturally. Like, we did just go into some natural options for women who are reaching for that caffeine or whatever. I just know that if women have got something to look for that maybe they're experiencing and they haven't caught on yet what's happening, and they can catch on early. Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah. So look, once again, waking up foggy, if you're waking up tired, if you're getting that 3 p.m. slump, getting the fatigue throughout the day, that's a big one. So your energy levels is a huge indicator of whether the adrenals are working well or you're in HPA axis dysregulation. If you're overly inflamed, so you have the bloating issues, whether there's lots of pain as well, and you're experiencing aching joints and pain everywhere that's unexplained, that you've been to see the practitioner and they can't find anything. That's another one as well. Whether you have had your blood pathology done and you've come back with the HbA1c. So that's the glycosylation of blood sugars over 3 months, Crystal. And that's on your blood test, a better indicator rather than a random blood test, random pathology for blood sugars, just to say where you're at. So that's an indicator too that HPA is dysregulated, or cortisol levels could be quite high as a result of them, because they play together. Cortisol and blood sugars play together. That's the way they roll in the body. Just in regards to your sleep, if you're not sleeping well overall and you're having that wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, is it a hormonal wake up? Is it a cortisol wake up? Because there's two different ones. A cortisol wake at 3 a.m. is basically, oh yeah, I can get up and start mopping the floor right now, or I can carry conversation I had at 2:00 in the afternoon like it was nothing. The hormonal one is more groggy, more, I want to go back to sleep, but I've woken up, that sort of thing. The ruminating thoughts overall, the stress. Stress and anxiety is a huge one as an indicator for your dysregulated HPA axis or cortisol issue. So if you feel like you're getting a bit snappy and you're
the dragon has come out.
Yes. Yeah. And look, with PMS in perimenopause as well, that's a huge one. That shortness in temperament and not having, like, you'll hear women say, I don't have the patience I used to have. And they're feeling like they just can't cope. They're cutting appointments. They're cutting off social ties. They're doing all the things. The quality of life is starting to be impaired. That's a very early indicator of HPA dysregulation. So just being mindful of that. As the landscape of the brain changes through the neuroplasticity of the brain, the brain's recalibration during perimenopause, that's going to have an effect on HPA axis dysregulation too. Another one is if you do get you tested for, your thyroid, if you're not going to the toilet properly, obviously you're not having a good bowel movement, all early indicators. And I think your question was, what can we do about it to
restore it?
vitality?
Yeah.
So doing those things that you were talking about, Crystal, too, the grounding, the getting out in nature, making sure that you're taking time to pause, saying no. How often, good girl syndrome is one of the biggest reasons for HPA axis dysregulation. So the more we say yes, people pleasing, not pleasing ourselves, we're feeling like we have to say yes. We're feeling like we can't say no to the bake up at the school, or yes, I can attend this, and yes, I can do that for free, or that, other thing that you want me to do in 3 or 4 months' time. The commitment issues that women are having too is all
And I
part
just
of.
want to say something there. The people pleasers that feel like they can't say no, no is an entire sentence. You don't need an excuse. You can just say, no, I can't make it. No. Like I won't be there. That's it. There's no excuse needed. You don't need to explain yourself. That's all.
That's so true. And I'm so glad you said that, because we feel as women that we have to explain ourselves and justify why we're feeling the way we do.
Yeah. You don't have to say I'm busy. I'm busy can literally just be I'm going to meditate. Actually, I don't want to be there.
That's right. Exactly. I've just got my period. I'm just going to spend the night in. Thanks. Well, you don't even have to say you got your period. I just want a night in.
But that can be your reason. Like you don't. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And we don't think of that, because we're thinking we need to please the other person or people, because we want to be highly regarded. We don't want them to talk about us. We don't want negative energy. But we're creating that negative energy on ourselves by not listening to our bodies. The problem with this chronic exhaustion is it can end up into burnout if you don't listen to the signs and symbols, like these little things that I said. So, pausing, taking time to rest. If you need a nap, have a nap. Having a break. I'll often say to clients, book a weekend away, treeside, seaside, you know, get out there, go for a hike. You've got beautiful nature behind you, Crystal. Like all of that is, I'm just looking at that thinking, I want to be there. I want to get there. We have an evolutionary mismatch between us and our environment. Our ancestors were out there in their environment. We're not. We are full of electromagnetic fields, and that's forcing inflammation, and that's forcing our adrenal, our HPA axis to be in overdrive. So we have to let go of some of that and get out into nature where we really belong. And I think doing that is good. Cooking a beautiful meal, that's one of my favorite ones. I think it's the nutritionist in me as well. Just preparing something where you start to salivate, you look at the food, the appeal of the food, it starts to get the digestive juices flowing. Indigestion is a huge one in HPA axis dysregulation. The amount of women that are going through bloating and not, when I eat certain foods, I could eat in my 20s and 30s and suddenly you can't eat the way you did, or they're putting weight on as a result of something they might have been eating that they've always ate, and now they're having calorie issues, or they're having fat metabolism issues and metabolism issues overall. Cooking a beautiful meal that's going to nourish you and give you your good quality protein, your carbohydrates, and your good fats, not missing any of the macros. And that's satiating. I get so many women saying, I'm constantly hungry, because they're not getting their right amount of foods through the day. That's putting stress on the body. That's adding to HPA axis dysregulation. By the time they get to 5:30 and they're in the Coles checkout, and they see the Kit Kat block, and they haven't eaten well. They didn't do their 3 p.m. protein, and they didn't get what they need from their lunch or breakfast, because it starts very early in the day. They're going to, the prefrontal cortex of the brain is just going to say, have the chocolate, because you need it, girl. You got to get home. You got to cook. You got to do all the things, be a good person to the family. You need the chocolate. You need the buffering.
Speaking of chocolate, I just want to say to women who sabotage themselves at that time in their cycle where they're craving chocolate and go, oh, well, see, I always ruin it. Look, and then fall off the wagon and then just, continue to binge and eat like crap because they had chocolate. We crave chocolate during that time in our cycle because we need more calories and we need those carbs in our diet. Just lean into that. And it's your body intuitively telling you what it needs. I am leading up to my bleed. And so I am absolutely going to be making this yummy chocolate tart that I've been wanting to make from one of our programs using our cacao. I'm really looking forward to it. And it's just simple, like blend it up, put it in the fridge and set. It's not hard. I can do that, absolutely do that, to prepare for the fact that I'm going to want to eat like that. And so do those sorts of things. No, get in touch with what your body is telling you that it needs and it craves, and make those healthier options. Be prepared for it, because otherwise you're going to eat the chocolate on the way home, and then you're going to go, you know what? I can't even be bothered cooking Macca's or whatever your flavor of crap is.
Yeah.
You're going to get that and not eat the food that you just bought at the shops and just like see. And it's another way of self-sabotage. And then you'll continue the next day. Well, I've already eaten like crap. And
Viral.
yeah, quite often women who have not been able to eat without deprivation, because, you know, we shouldn't be depriving ourselves. We should have foods that nourish our bodies. We should have those quality options, like I said, like I'm going to be making. And if we don't do these things, and we're doing all these different yo-yo diets throughout our lives, and, you know, come perimenopause and you have weight gain that you're like, I just can't shake it. You've caused insulin resistance instead of insulin sensitivity because of the way that you have treated your metabolism or treated your body before with all of the yo-yo dieting. And so you've just got a little bit more work to do to be able to
Yes.
reset. It's not broken. You can do the work. It's just that you have to work with the right people that know what you're going through and how to best support you.
So true. I love that. We are not broken, because I think we are, and it's not fixable, but it is. And this is why I always say, not only with metabolic flexibility, but with looking at chronic disease across the broad spectrum, when you get to, if you're in your 40s, your health is predetermined from then on for every decade. It's a report card. You need to look after yourself in a certain way and make sure that you're doing the things. It doesn't have to be an exhaustive list of things, but just doing those small things every day that will have the biggest impact. Because women will turn around and say, you know, later on in their lives when they come and see me, well, I don't know how I've got to this stage. And then I will say to them, you know, years of abuse of certain drugs, alcohol, you know, exposure to environmental toxins and pollutants, you know, so
Which
not
is everywhere.
look,
Not your fault, by the way. It's in the
no,
air. It's in the water. Like, it's in
everywhere.
the soil that our fruit and veggies are grown in.
That's
The
right.
soil is depleted. Like, you just need to be aware.
So that's right. Awareness is the tool that you need to navigate this time and
Yeah.
say, okay, well, you know, I was just talking to someone on another podcast the other day about, you know, she was saying, well, you know, organic. Do you think everyone should eat organic? Because is that the way through looking at menopausal symptoms? Is that going to reduce it? I said, it is. I mean, it's great if you can. It's just not accessible to everybody though. Because if you can only afford, you know, if you can't afford an $18 punnet of strawberry, because your kids are going through 2 punnets a day, you know, you've got to sort of look at what you can do.
Also, we eat organic. We have fruit trees, vegetables,
Yes.
herbs, and they're seasonal. Plus, they take a while to really grow to be fruitful. You can't get quality, reliable organic fruits and vegetables at the shops. You have this small little section. So while we love organic, we can't always get it. And so we do have to eat other fruits and vegetables. But you've got to take proper precautions, like wash them. And baby steps. So make it sustainable, make it so that it's not hard. 7.5 years ago when I started with nutrition support. That was all I did. I took capsules of fruits, vegetables, berries, and omegas. They are kosher certified, so they're better than organic. They are absolutely what's on the label is that's it. And it's 30 different fruits, vegetables, and berries. I'm certainly not getting the amount in my diet every day if I wasn't taking them.
Mm.
It's easy. I'm bridging the gap. You eat a rainbow. You aim for quality food. You nourish your body because it feels good to put that food in. But bridging the gap gave me the energy to be able to cook the quality food. It gave me the energy to go to that toxic work environment that right back then I was going to, that 9 to 5 job. Like it's find something that makes it achievable for you and add steps in, because mine started with that one simple step. And, you know, one of the tests that I did last year was the biological age test, which this nutrition support has reversed my biological age by a decade. They're bioavailable and they're healing on a cellular level. I know that it feels good in my body when I use it and I take it every day. Then it was like the water and because if you're drinking tap water, stop. So many things that you can just continue to add, but don't be overwhelming yourself with trying to do everything all at once, because that's
so
where
true.
burnout happens. That's where you're going to just throw it all in and fall off the
Yeah.
wagon. One step, add in another step, find what works for you and do it. Explaining my story just shares that it's absolutely achievable, because I was a burnt out zombie mum. Well, to be honest, before I started, I had just been homeless with my family. My ex-husband I was in a toxic marriage for 26 years and he was suicidal, and I was given everything to everyone else and I had nothing left in the tank. I was so freaking done. And so adding this nutrition support in made it achievable to feel good in my body again. I could sleep because I wasn't sleeping good. I was sleeping better and I had energy within the first week. I have never felt that kind of energy before, and I've always thought I was healthy. And so just having these kinds of little things, finding whatever works for you so that you can, if you're not in perimenopause yet, once you get here, or even if your hormones are out of balance, whatever it is that you're experiencing, so that you can take those steps to be able to then reset whatever's going on inside.
So true. Even fertility issues. I mean, we don't, earlier on, but, we know we need to nourish ourselves. If you're undernourished, if you're not looking at the intracellular level, if you're not looking at the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell, it determines your fertility. It's all connected, and it's, really making sure that you're meeting the mark on all of that, but not overdoing it, as you said, because you can become exhausted and throw in the towel. So you don't want that at the same time. And yes, I agree. Water, make sure proper water.
Yes.
I pay for our water.
Yes. Reverse osmosis. If anyone's looking at quality water filters, we have a reverse osmosis, which means it does get the fluoride out, which, if you're not aware by now, fluoride lowers your IQ, amongst other things. So we don't need that leading into this hormonal change. There's not another thing we need to do. It's like, skip that. Just, get an ours was only about $600. It's an under the sink system. And then once we have filtered the water from there, then we have an Alps filter. So we pour it from there into the Alps, and that puts all the minerals back in. So minerals are so important too. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Can you tell? I just get a bit passionate about this.
So do I, because I think, this one of the things that people don't, realize. And when, I go to the dentist and she says to me, "You don't want the fluoride, do you?" I'm like, no, please, no fluoride.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah. Neurotoxin and not great for my pineal gland. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we have covered a fair amount of ways to be able to support your hormones and that change, and most things that women complain about that they experience during this time. The weight changes and metabolic shifts are big challenges during the midlife, and the role that the gut plays in metabolism. Anything that we can do to support a healthy balance that we haven't spoken about?
Yeah, well, looking at your pre and probiotics, I think too. So, what are they? Well, prebiotic fibers are your lentils, your leeks, your chicory, your dandelion, some of your mustard greens, your onions and garlic, that sort of thing. Adding banana, inulin, adding those prebiotic foods into your repertoire of eating, making sure that you're getting enough of those foods every single day, even if they're in just dribs and drabs. Your flaxseed is a very good one as well. So making sure your flax and chia seed, you're getting your omega-3s, your linoleic and olinic acids from those. They're really going to help with the microbiome. They're going to help pretty much with just restoring gut bacteria, helping with hormonal balance. It's great for hormonal balance, the flaxseed. if you can tolerate it. And just ensuring that you're getting enough sort of nourishment from all the macros that I was talking about before. So cooking a meal that's got all the great foods in it, ensuring you're getting enough protein for the neurotransmitters. I think women feel that they're getting enough protein in their diet, but they're actually not. It's a bit
Mm.
like fiber.
Yeah.
I find that they're not meeting their requirements as well, and they're a little bit
Yeah.
confused about how to do that. There's only so many hours in the day. Once again, you're going to get me to eat so many different things, because when I do meal planning for them, they'll have a look at the food and think, wow, that's a lot of food. Like, I want to lose weight, you
Mm.
know, and now realizing that protein's a really important factor when we
Mm.
look at it is a building block for amino acids, but it also helps with the liver to do phase 3 detoxification.
And it
So we
helps
need it.
satiate too. So when you're hungry, reaching for those protein and fats over carbs, because if you're looking at a certain amount of calories for a day because you want to stay in that deficit if you're trying to lose weight, having proteins and fats as your focus with your fiber, you easily meet your carbs. Everyone's struggling with their
The
protein.
protein, yeah.
And yeah, if you look at 1.5 grams per ideal body weight is what you should be aiming for your protein. Because I know there's a lot of confusion about how much to aim for. And if you're struggling to know, is it Fitness Pal? It's not sustainable to have to do it constantly. But if you did it for a few weeks to know, wow, okay, I'm only hitting that. How can I change it? And that way you get an idea of, okay, so if I eat this sort of breakfast, if you're starting your day with eggs and your spinach and your mushrooms and you're sprinkling some hemp seeds on there and sesame seeds and pepitas are good too, but sesame
Yeah.
seeds are a really good to seed cycle. So seed cycling is a thing for hormones too.
Mm.
And then adding your kimchi of a morning too is really good to have for your gut health. And then you've got an approximate, this about is that much grams for my breakfast. And I have the same smoothie every day, basically. Might change up whether I'm having the protein powders, but I know if I have this one, I'm getting this amount. If I have this one, I'm getting this amount of protein. And the same with fiber. It helps you because it shows you when you're reaching your fiber, your protein, and all of that. So it's another good way of just being able to set up yourself sustainably to know if I eat like this, I achieve my goals. When I don't, be hard on yourself. Just reset. You had an off day. Just
Yeah.
get back on with it. And, how can you do better the next day? And honor that time in your cycle. Like I said, maybe eat chocolate. So
Exactly. And I think you really sort of said about, like, making sure if you're feeling like something, have it. It's the way the body is saying, right, I need the carbohydrates. Like, so often women are shortchanging themselves with carbohydrates at dinner time. And it's probably the worst thing to do, because of the serotonin levels, and they can wake them up at 3 a.m. And they're not realizing that that's the issue. They're in a deficit. So making sure they're getting enough of the carbs, have the carbohydrates, making sure they're good quality ones, but don't put yourself in a deficit or shortchange yourself because you're worried about the weight, because that in the long run isn't going to help weight anyway. The same with the protein. And I think too, women are like, oh, well, I'm not bodybuilding and doing things like that. I don't need as much protein. No, you don't need massive slabs of protein every time you're eating, but you need to ensure that there's some good quality protein every time you do eat, because that's going to help with feeling fuller for longer. It's going to help with your hormonal balance. It's going to help with the gut. It's going to help with the pepsin and digestion in the gut. It's going to help with the liver, as I was saying before, but mainly because it's going to make those neurotransmitters in the brain that we need for our mood. Or
Mm,
else you're going to be cranky
yeah,
if you're not having the right amount. And
yeah.
and no pill and anything is going to solve that, or supplements in some ways can. My belief is that food plays that huge part in that, specifically as the source, as the primary source of protein. I've been vegan before, I've been vegetarian before, and I've found it very hard to meet my protein through just lentils and plant-based proteins. It wasn't until I went back to meat and I went back to fish and everything else that I realized that my gut was better. It was helping my stress response a lot more. I wasn't stressing out my body. And not that I'm saying, I work with vegetarians and vegans, and I get why they do it. I do. It's just you have to be very, very, because a lot of them come to me and they do not have enough protein. Their iron is low. Their B12 levels are plummeting. That's not great for gut and the microbiome.
I want to speak into, there's a few things there. I wanted to speak about our cycles and like when we're saying we're eating intuitively and how we feel at different times of our cycles and that, self-sabotage. If you're someone who has tried intermittent fasting before or any type of fasting or detoxing, and you've not done it in the right part of your cycle, it's another reason why you probably failed, because women should not fast during that lead up to your bleed or during your bleed, because we need those calories. And so if you're like, see, I can't do this, it's probably because it was just the wrong timing for you. And if you like in our programs, we have our high protein detox, we have cycle mapping and all of the tools there for women to learn about this stuff. But it is done after your bleed, when you're in your spring cycle, you're in that cruciferous vegetables and you're feeling light, and that's where you're like the life of the party,
Yes,
and the
absolutely.
energy, and you want to show up to things. That's when you can fast. That's when you can do intermittent fasting or detoxing, whatever it is for you that that you want to do or that you're wanting to try. Just look at where you are in your cycle, because that's another reason that people can feel like they're failing.
Absolutely. And the other thing too is the more stressed we are, the less we are going to get any benefit from intermittent fasting too. And I think women who are doing that fast paced morning, they're rushing around, they're getting ready, getting kids ready, themselves ready, hubbies and partners ready, and off they go. That by the time they get to work and then 10 o'clock comes along and their cortisol levels are disrupted, and they're fasting, obviously they're not having anything in their system, is it can create a negative in terms of their weight. It's not going to be beneficial for their weight. It's not going to be beneficial for, their stress levels in general. So you just have to really look at that too. There are times of the cycle to fast. There are times of the cycle to do what we do. As you said, I think that's a big, big part of that. Even exercise is the other thing. I mean, we have to look
Yeah.
when exercising, when are we going to do the resistance training? When are we going to do the cardio?
And it's definitely during those times after your bleed where you're feeling great, and those slower movements like yoga and stretching and walks
Right before the
are
rest
better before. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
just honoring.
you feel different and honoring that time, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Showing up how your body really feels naturally drawn.
Yeah. Just go by your cycle. Yeah. Or your energy levels.
Yeah. Do you have any other tips that you would like to share with us today?
I think, look, it there's so much out there for us. I would say don't take on the weight of the world. Don't try to do all the biohacks that are out there, because you're going to be going to bed at a certain amount of time and waking up at a certain amount of time to do them. And that's probably going to hinder your sleep and your stress levels. Choose the lowest hanging fruit. What's available to you? What changes can you start to make today that are going to sustain your long-term outcomes and that are going to help your goals, whatever they are? So whether that's weight, whether that is energy, whether that is restoring your sleep, feeling better, reducing anxiety, what can you do today? What do you have at home that's within your reach? What tools can you use? Also relying on just opening up to other women as well. We're not talking to each other as much about these issues now. Social media has created a wedge. If you look back in the olden days, even back to our ancestors, the women would congregate together and sit and talk about things. The men would do the same. Whereas we're not doing that as much now. We're relying on information coming from different sources, and we're not actually out there just being open about how we're feeling and what we're going through as well. And, I think going to see a practitioner that knows you is the other thing, that is going to take the time to listen to you, because we're not actually, we're being gaslit. We aren't finding that we're getting the when we go for our practitioner consult, we're walking out with a list of probably medications and a list of other things that are not related to what we're going through, and we're becoming more confused. So just making sure that you're seeing someone that does take the time to look at your blood pathology, going in depth with that is so important. If you're feeling off, getting that done and just ensuring that you are getting the right panel done for you as well. So speaking to someone that knows about that too.
Yeah. For anyone who wants to do the hormone testing, I did mine I did all of mine, comprehensive DNA, the biological age, and the Dutch hormone. I did it through iScreen. So as in computer screen. They've got a lot of different tests on there that you can do.
I'm the same. Yeah, if I find my clients are coming and then I say, look, you've brought me your blood test. I need you to go back and ask your GP to fill out some other things. I would like some other reports, And then they'll say that fortunately, my GP didn't let me get my zinc and copper or blah, blah, blah. So I say, well, let's go on iScreen or iMedical and we'll do it ourselves. So we'll build our own pathology and, it's just a good way for us to then come back and say, right, we've got this great panel now.
Yeah.
But just having somebody to interpret it for you as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So you have something exciting that you have got coming up. Can you let our viewers know what you're doing and where they can find you, where your platforms are?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Crystal, I'm working on a 3-day webinar, which will be coming up shortly in regards to dealing with perimenopause and menopause and fatigue, which is the big one. So, the one that, most women are going through. Just a little bit of mindset work in that as well. So, looking at ways that we can work on some of the things that you can do to ensure that your perimenopause and menopause is symptom free as much as possible, and what red flags to look out for. So what are some of the things that you can do in your nutrition with supplements and botanicals as well, especially? I have an exploratory session and I run discovery sessions with clients. So you can find me on my website at embraceholistichealth.com.au. I've also got a YouTube. It's the Functional Medicine Practitioner. And I have a presence on social media as well. So I'm the Holistic Health and Wellness Coach on Instagram, and you can find me at my own name, Sharon Cassar Galea, which has become my business profile now. So I've moved that over. But yeah, so a few things coming up, definitely in that space as well.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I will pop all of the links below for people in the show notes so you can head over, and that way you can be there to see when that webinar is coming up and you're already going to be ready to go for that.
Yep.
Exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you for today. Thank you for joining us and sharing all your wisdom with us to help women support this journey that has just not been shared enough in the past. So we honor that. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me, Crystal, and allowing me to share this information and be with you and the women, all of your listeners. I don't like the word empower now. I think it's more just share the information that really you have the right to hear.
Yeah, I love the word empower. For women who have lost their power, because I can relate to that back in my past journey, that I really had no self-power. So I'd love to know, viewers who have listened this far, thank you. I honor you for showing up for yourself. And I would love to know what your top takeaway from today was, or even what you plan to take away and go and action, or maybe if you have some questions. So let us know below. I would love to know.
Thanks for being here, beautiful souls. The Awaken Mama podcast is a special place for us to grow, heal, and rise together, because you're never alone on this journey. I'd love to connect with you, so don't be shy. Please comment below your takeaways and let us build this empowered community. Remember to hit like, hit subscribe, and join me every Sunday at 2:22 Angel Numbers for more conversations to support your wellness, wholeness, and awakening. I'm truly grateful you're here.